In the news, is Mike Ashley the biggest piece of shit in football history? The Premier League allow 5 substitutes, which means Jose Mourinho can substitute his entire attack with 5 defenders and take parking the bus to a whole new level. And has Mesut Ozil been dumped by Adidas for doing the right thing? Maybe not. In the news, Premier League teams will be able to make 5 substitutions instead of the regular 3 for the rest of the Premier League campaign. Now, they're able to name 9 substitutes instead of the 7 throughout the regular season. Does this create an unfair advantage for the top teams, Alex?
Actually, before I answer that, I do just want to say, even though you can now make 5 subs, the rules actually state that you can still only make 3 kind of substitutes. So you can only make subs at 3 different times.
Oh, just to make sure that the game is not delayed any further.
Yeah. And to answer your question as to whether or not it represents an unfair advantage to certain teams, of course it does.
Yeah.
I mean, let me, I like to try and paint a picture with words. Let's just look at the Man City bench, for argument's sake. They're not doing too well. They bring off Sterling, Aguero, and Bernardo Silva, and they bring on Sane, Mahrez, and Jesus.
Yeah, now, that's too much of a powerful subs bench. And how much did that sub bench cost as well?
It's exactly that. And if you look at, I'll be fair. I'll do my own team. If you look at Tottenham, you have Son, maybe Bergwijn, and Kane up top. Who have you got on the bench? Lamella.
Yeah, but I mean, to a much lesser degree to the Man City team, I'd say.
No,
I really think
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. The
right.
comparison, and that's a club who's like kind of they've had a bit of money over the last few seasons. They're currently sitting in 8th. The lower down you go, the more unfair it gets, I think. So yeah.
I mean, I think their primary reason for agreeing this was to avoid injuries throughout the game because they're playing games way more frequently. I think the lower level clubs probably agreed to this because even if they were to get injuries, it might happen to one of their best players. And imagine trying to play the rest of the season without one of their better players. So if they can do more substitutions and keep them fresh, at least they'll have a chance. Whereas if you kept it to the same rules, they could just be relegated. That could be the difference between getting relegated for them.
Yeah, I suppose for the lower teams, it is very much the best of a bad situation. But hopefully it doesn't affect teams too much. Obviously, they've not had a lot of time to prepare. So I suppose the only thing we can do is just cross our fingers and hope there's not too many injuries and the extra substitutes just do kind of help teams along rather than providing too much of an advantage to other teams.
Yeah, and I know no one ever wants to talk about, football as a product, but if you think in totality as a product, you want all your best players fit. You don't ever want them to go down with injury. So the best that they can do to keep all the players there, the product for us is just going to be that much better. And considering that they have no fans in the stadium, they need all the help that they can get.
Yeah, 100%. In other news, Newcastle United just can't seem to get their name out of the headlines. So, as you may have seen, many clubs have come out and they've offered fans refunds, some in a bit of a weird way, but it's still a refund for the games in which for the games in which they will be behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Newcastle United have not only remained silent and not offered any refunds as yet, but they thought they would go one step further and start taking payments for the next season.
Incredibly cheeky. I borderline admire their cheek in doing this.
So my question my question to you is, what do you think of Mike Ashley now?
I was thinking about it earlier, and I just don't know how much more of a villain can he be in Newcastle? He's really going and taking every step further to make sure he is the most hated man ever in not just Newcastle United, just Newcastle, the city, in history. I think the only thing left for him to do is just walk about Sunderland, Newcastle in a Sunderland shirt and then that will be done. And then he'll take his couple 100 million away with him once the Saudis come in. So it's you never want to see it, but more and more so you do see clubs just absolutely taking advantage of fans' loyalty. And the thing is, the Newcastle fans they'll probably accept the majority of them just because they love Newcastle so much. So I just PR nightmare. Absolute PR nightmare, but he's leaving anyway. So,
I mean, what we've learned about Ashley over the years, and that's whether that's through football or through his businesses, he doesn't care what the public perception is of him.
No, he definitely doesn't.
Let's not remember that he tried to argue that Sports Direct should stay open whilst the lockdown was in full effect because they were essential workers. No disrespect to people who work with Sports Direct. It isn't. But come on, man.
Yeah.
And in our final bits of news today, so there were rumours bouncing about a few days ago that Adidas were dropping Ozil, and that the reason behind that was because of a few of the controversial things that he's done over the last few years. Now, his agent has come out since then and said that it's just the end of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to look into much there. But as an Arsenal fan, which you are, not me.
Yeah, you can see my lovely background here.
That didn't look like you're tickling his chin at all. But as an Arsenal fan, do you think that there's more to the story than what they're trying to let on? Was it maybe linked to the controversies? Can you elaborate on the controversies?
I think, okay, so Ozil has had a very controversial previous 2 years. The last 2 years have been pretty wild. He's had the president of Turkey, Erdogan, as his best man at his wedding. Erdogan. Okay. I pronounced it right. I don't know why you're asking it again. And obviously he's had very controversial history in Turkey, basically changing it from a democracy into basically a dictatorship. So that was highly controversial. And then he fell out with the German national team because he was unfairly treated for poor performances by Germany because of his Turkish roots and the directors of the German Football Federation. And so he eventually retired. And then on top of that, he quite rightly spoke out about the treatment of Muslims in China, mm-hmm. right? And if you add all of those things up, this is kind of like a sponsor's worst nightmare, right, for Adidas. And even so, I think Mercedes dropped him pretty early after his retirement from the German national team.
I think that happened. I think he retired from the German national team and Mercedes was like, nah.
Yeah, Mercedes too big for any association with that sort of behavior.
The Germans, they stick together.
I know.
Mercedes, Adidas straight away. Cut this guy. Cut.
Yeah. So it is a combination of the fact that he has this public image which has changed rapidly since he signed that original deal, and the fact that if you just go off social media reach, Ozil is like one of the biggest players in the world, probably like top 5, and probably the type of money that he was probably going for is not what any sponsorship will probably be prepared to pay, especially for Ozil, who's in the latter stage of his career. Now, his agent obviously came out and said that, Ozil wants to focus on his own brand, the N10 brand, instead of going with any sponsor. But at the same time, for you, if that happened to you, your agent has to come out and say that, even if it was true or it wasn't true, I feel.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I don't know.
I do agree with that. He is obliged to, even if Adidas wrote on white paper and black pen and said, it's because he invited the Turkish president to his wedding. Actually, he was best man, wasn't he?
Yeah,
but
best man, yeah.
You'd have to deny it. You'd have to straight out, it didn't happen.
Yeah, so I really don't know. I feel a bit sorry for Ozil, but I do have a lot of sort of respect for him, other than the having a Turkish dictator at your at a wedding. It's just a bit. Other than that, I really can't tell what exactly it is. I really hope that he builds his own brand and show that he's capable of doing it without these massive sponsors. Because screw Adidas, because they're trying to go big in China, especially with the basketball. So it kind of makes sense if you think about it. But what do you think from the outside looking in?
I mean, to me, the thing is, I don't know like kind of all the politics behind it, but he was paid quite a lot of money when he signed a deal with Adidas. It was 7 years ago. He was at Real Madrid,
Yeah,
and
22 million over 7 years.
yeah, and I think he was, he was one of the guys at Real Madrid. The assists he got Ronaldo, and I think that's what they were buying back then. And his kind of
World Cup
public
winner.
image, World Cup winner, and I think his image since then, kind of just in general, and kind of let's say how much he's respected or appreciated as a footballer has declined a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and that's partly, and that is linked to how much money you get paid. So I think there just probably wasn't an agreeable deal on the table. I do want to add though that since learning about him having the Turkish president as his best man and inviting dictators in general, I've completely changing my plans. I'm now uninviting Kim Jong Un from
I've invited Trump to my birthday as well.
not necessarily a dictator. No one can get mad.
But in essence, kind of one. Yeah, just as a final point, I just really hope these big sponsorship companies, because they kind of seem like when a player comes out and fights for something that is genuinely right, they at the time they'll stick with them, but when the contract negotiations come about, they are increasingly skeptical of renewing some of these deals. So I don't know. It kind of feels like a perfect conspiracy.
Yeah, I do. I do hope that football does it, especially with coronavirus going on right now, and players are coming out and being a bit more honest. They really should work towards having a more open and honest environment, and that will mean that more players will come out and say some stupid things that they probably shouldn't say. But there'll be a lot of people that learn off them.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and the thing is, not everything he said is bad, as you say. Very rightly called out the treatment of Muslims in China.
Yeah, I think in my older age, every time I get a bit older, I'm just so skeptical of of every single company. I just know what you're up to. I can't trust you at
They're
all.
just taking your money and put it
Yeah.
in the pocket.
But that's all. That is all for the news. Uh, we rambled on. But hope you liked that. Follow us on Fickle Sports and all of that good stuff.
And sub us.
In the news, oh fucking hell. I've never fucked up that early before.
You didn't even do anything wrong. It's like you
No,
forgot the next word. In
yeah,
the news. What day is it today?
blank.